Welcome to Ruby's roundtable discussion. No, I'm kidding. Okay, what's important for you in a manager? Let's start with that. Maybe Matthew, you can go first.
Oof, right off the bat.
Just throw you under the boat.
Yikes. What's important for me in a manager? I don't know. I think I'm pretty keen on not being micromanaged, as most people I think are. Oh, there we go. But I like having someone that I can, just someone that makes the relationship feel comfortable and easy to express things that I feel silly about. If I was to talk about them normally, things about like culture at work or just stuff that's bothering me that I probably should be an adult about it, but maybe have not let go. But just things like that. I find having someone that I can chat to about those kinds of things really makes a big difference, and makes the is very important to me at my workplace. So,
do you feel like you've had this manager that you're happy with in terms of the sort of your management criteria?
Yes. So I've had two jobs, the one I'm at currently and the one a few jobs ago as well. Really, like they are interested, listen, all those good skills, whereas it doesn't feel like it's like, okay, I've got a meeting, come on, give me some stuff. It's very much an open dialogue. Anyway, it's these seem like pretty obvious things, but sometimes it depend. Like it's not always obvious to said manager. They may not realize that they are there not just to be like, got to get those TPS reports in, and more like how are you doing as a human, that kind of stuff, which I think is really important and makes a big difference for me, because those things are important to me. So yeah, that would be my answer. Now, Sherilyn, you have to report back to Kieran about all the lovely things. Okay, thanks. Great, cool, good. Anyone else like to chime in? Sherilyn.
I think what's important to me is that they're invested in my success, that they want me to develop, because success for me means success for the business ultimately. And I think the other thing I really am super keen in is if I'm navigating some problems or issues, that they're there with me, helping me figure out a path forward and getting over any hurdles that I have.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo on that. I think someone, what's important for me in a manager is, all the things that Matt said, but also someone who can challenge me and get me to think differently as well. I think that's the only way I'll be able to grow. And I think the other thing was, it just slipped my mind. I had something in my head. I forgot. I'll come back to it.
We can come back to it. Anyone else?
I think I would love to hear at the end of your preferences on whether or not you feel like you've had that in a manager. Or do you feel like you look back in your career at any point and you were like, oh, okay, they did a really good job managing me in that perspective, or they helped me get through that thing, or they didn't. I think that's something I'm really curious about, because is it something that you develop through a lot of introspection, or do you develop it through an experience because you do have somebody that sort of just manages to hit that nail in the head, and you're like, well done, now I know what to ask for next time? I'm keen to hear Paul's answer. How are you doing, Paul? It's been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Nadia. I mean, I think that those kinds of preferences are born by either pain from having something that you didn't like previously, or just, noticing that, or I guess having something that you did, having someone who was a really good manager first, and then going on to another manager who didn't demonstrate, those particular traits there, which means, I guess, that both of those are like to do with pain. So I guess that, yeah, so, but I don't know, I guess that from a manager perspective, if it's like a project manager, then someone who, I guess, if my role in the team is to do straight delivery, then to yes, life is pain. Thanks, Nadia. It is. If it was just straight delivery and I had a project manager, their ability to be able to, I guess, flesh out bits of work explicitly so that I can then just kind of like, pick stuff up and go with them while giving me enough autonomy to be able to do things the way that I need to, while having the expertise to be able to take console, well, to provide counsel should I require it. And then I guess that if it was like a product manager perspective, then, someone who really has, I guess, the North Star in mind and is a sort of a deep subject matter expert in, whatever we're doing, so that they can sort of provide, I guess, a lot of contextual information to sort of like help, determine and refine, the stuff that, I'm meant to be doing technically.
That's a great answer. Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
And what about a manager or like a team lead wise?
Team lead,
Yeah.
lots of empathy, I think, and like lots of human skills overall. Like to be the person that is the tide that lifts all boats, and I think that that's sort of paraphrasing what's already been said around having a manager who's invested in the success of the people that they are managing, because your success is their success, is the company's success, etc. So yeah.
I think having someone who's calm for me is also really important. Like, if I'm already like flustered and I'm like, oh my God, I'm coming to you with a problem, and then they are also flustered and, stressed like me, that doesn't help me stress my stress level. So I think for me, that's also really important, that at least they appear calm. Yeah. I've definitely kind of seen managers or team leads who aren't that, and you can just kind of feel the whole team's kind of stress level just kind of goes up as well when that happens.
That's very fun.
I got sort of more of a meta commentary, which is about the question itself. What's important for you in a manager? When I read that, my question is, okay, so what are you describing as a manager? I remember reading something, I'd probably say 15 years ago, that you manage things, you lead people. And in a past life, having been IT manager, CTO, that sort of thing, that resonated with me, because I knew that even though I was overseeing other people, I wasn't necessarily managing, I was trying to lead them. That distinction for me was valuable and important. So I'd ask the question, when you say what's important for a manager of what, or who? Do you mean as a team lead, or do you mean to manage things?
All kind of answered it from all angles. So it really just, I guess, someone who, I think that my interpretation is, either a project manager, a people manager, or a tech lead of some kind, just anyone that is coming from any place of authority on any topic in that you are involved in.
May I make a comment?
Please, Martin.
Okay, so I'm pretty dated. However, back in the day when I was starting out, the one thing that I started off in terms of management, in terms of the team that worked for me, was that I wanted everyone in the team to share their knowledge, so that the knowledge that they had was shared with everyone. Anybody that held their knowledge to themselves, I didn't, I made it clear that they weren't being good. In terms of managers, both for myself and for the people that I've worked for, I like a manager that makes a decision whether it's correct or wrong, because I hate procrastination. I want someone to say, okay, let's go down this path. and we'll go down this path for 5 minutes. And if the path is no good, we'll turn back and we'll have only lost 5 minutes. The point of it is we've made some forward progress and we found out that it's faulty. When I have been a people manager and you come to me with a problem, I listen to your problem, but I want you to have brought to me your solution. And then I just need to adjudicate as to whether I agree with what your path out of your problem is. Rather than you come to me with a problem and it's going to go blah, blah. Well, okay, great. I really would like to know what do you think is the solution that you would like for me to say, okay, that's good, we'll go along that path. What else have I noted down? Bring problems. Yeah, and in terms of the only jobs that I've ever taken as a manager is I started off as a techo like cabling, and I've worked my way into a couple of businesses that I own. I only manage the projects and the businesses where I have overarching knowledge of the infrastructure, because I feel what's the word? I don't like people to bring brochure solutions to me. I'd like to be able to, as someone said, I'd like to challenge you for what it is that you brought to me, and I'd like to speak from a position of authority rather than myself also being a brochure manager. I hate brochure managers, and I've had so many in my life, and I find them spineless, and I hate spineless people.
What do you mean by brochure?
You read a Microsoft brochure and you tell me why Microsoft SQL is the greatest product, versus you having had experience of putting in, a 10 million row table together and giving me the ups and downs of that versus Oracle versus MySQL, etc. I've lived the life of being a support engineer in many spheres, and these people come along and they just go, blah, we're going to make that as a solution. I go, well, how'd you come up with that? At the last conference. So, from the point of view of working, even now I work for other people, although I have my own staff and stuff, but that's my approach to both working for someone and what I want out of the bloke up the chain from me, and how I treat people that work for me. In other words, this is what if you're asking me as a manager, what would I like to see in you? These are the things. Come to me with the answer to your problem, and then basically I just say yay, nay. I make impulsive decisions in the sense of I don't dwell on something for too long. Let's try this and see how that goes. And very quickly we'll decide upon the parameters upon which we will draw back. That didn't work out. Well, let's go down this alley. That's how I've lived my life.
That's awesome. Great answer. Well, great comments, Martin. Thank you. That's really good. Anyone else would like to go? Nadia?
What about
I scared people off, have I?
I think you just gave people a lot to think about. What about yourself, Kevin?
What I like in manager. I guess for me, yeah, I would echo the comment of North Star. Like, it needs to, like, if I get like sidetracked sort of thing, I can just go back to him and be like, oh, to them, and be like, where are we going again? And I need them to be like, I can't deal with like micromanagement, so need them to be able to, yeah, believe in their people and give a bit of freedom to do my own thing or the team's own thing. And yeah, it's hard for me to think about it because I guess I've always worked in like, well, I used to be freelance and not in software development, and now I work at a startup. So I've always kind of reported to my bosses kind of thing, or like the top person. And so it's, I guess, hard to like Cinema manager. But yeah, that would be my thing. I guess the North Star in the project, you know.
For anyone who started off as a engineer and then moved into management, how do you score against the criteria that you just outlined for how to be a good manager?
Oh, that's a good question.
Can you please manage that?
Mm.
Nadia?
Just wait for her to finish a mouthful first.
I'm just gonna keep chewing. I'll just keep jamming things in
Keep
my
sharing,
mouth.
yeah.
No time for a break. I also want to hear Pat's comments as well. I mean, again, because managers is a loose word, right? It's all about leadership, or like, is there some kind of leadership that you've seen in your career that you'd like to emulate? That's another. I think cut that question. Wait, what was the question? Am I answering the main one? What's
Against the criteria that have been outlined.
Yeah. So Nadia, you became a manager, right? We went from individual contributor into managing a team of people.
Yeah, I got caught. Yep.
Yeah, kicked upstairs maybe. I don't know, but look, basically, like, so in the criteria that, for example, you gave on what makes a good manager, how do you score yourself?
Look, well in some places and not well in others. So I guess my criteria for a manager is probably maybe my criteria is someone who's empathetic and somebody who is who kind of opens doors. Those are probably the two things that I think are really important in a manager for me. And I like to think I'm empathetic, or at least I come off empathetic. Pat's laughing so hard. And whether or not open doors, and also is good at defining the purpose or like the goal for the work. I don't think I'm very good at defining the goal for the work. I think I'm terrible. My manager is better, so I kind of ride that coattail that he does. I'm like, why don't you come to stand up and tell the team, or go to the all hands and make sure you make an announcement there, and they'd love to hear it from you. So I do some sort of upwards delegation on that front. And whether or not I open doors, I like to think that I open doors because I think it's important to make room for other people all the time, whether it's open doors in a very extreme way, which is like, if you want to go anywhere, let me know. I will write a reference letter that will make the people reading it weep. Like, it's going to be so good. It's going to be a work of art. They're going to read it and they're going to be like, I'm going to hire you yesterday. Or whether it's, oh, if you want to move teams, and I think this is the kind of skills that team is looking for, or if you want to move within the team, like what that might look like. I'm okay at that, but I'm definitely not good at the setting direction for the team. I think I'm terrible.
It's more like a people leader.
What was that? Sorry, Kevin?
More like a people leader. That tide that rises all ship, as someone said.
Yeah, I tell my friends that, like, and my colleagues, but like just people in my life, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna have kids, so you're all my retirement policy. So you all need to be successful. So you can take care of me when I'm older. I do the Asian parent thing, but on my friends and on my colleagues.
That's all good.
You write that into the contracts?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I need you to be successful so that next time you move companies and you're like a CTO of something, like I'll get a job. That's where that's kind of where I want to be in life.
Answering question 2 already.
I know, right?
Yep.
You're 85 and you're a CTO somewhere because someone's really you know people. If you're
Yeah, I'm only really helping you to help me. So
Selfless in a selfish kind of way.
Yeah.
Paul, are you a manager these days?
Depends on the project that I'm on. I'm not a manager at the moment. I guess that although I do offer help or advice to for both clients and internally at the consulting company that I work for. I do a lot of, I guess, more mentorship than managerial stuff. I mean, I don't hold anyone's feet to the fire. I don't do performance reviews or anything like that, but I try and help say like junior developers I guess will help them on their track to achieving, some goals that they have set for themselves, whether that is on the consulting side or on the technical side. So yeah, there's a lot of that. And then it'll depend on what my client needs as to whether they need me to go and help their team or go and kick down doors or go and do whatever. So I just kind of put my chameleon mask on and do whatever.
Nice.
For the people who are managers, how do you go about learning about management? So for context, I became a manager actually almost a year ago now, but I manage like a couple of people, so like really small team. But yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. It's like, how do you do this thing?
My tactic is to say find a group of people in the industry and then slide these questions in on a slide and get them to answer the questions. That's kind of my tactic.
Yeah, I've also connected with someone recently who's lots of years of experience in managing teams, and so you're just kind of like catching up with them to pick their brains if there's certain issues that come up. I also started doing workshops with a company called Live Labs Learning. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. I think people at Culture M may have gone through that. But yeah, they do mini workshops. I've only done one with them so far, but planning to do more. But they seems to have really good kind of topics for managers or anyone who's interested in people leadership, really. So the one I did was on giving feedback. That was super great. I really liked it because that's an area that I'm not as great at. I'm not great in giving very direct feedback sometimes. And with Live Labs Learning, what I really like is that they do, it was only a 2-hour workshop for the topic. So super concise, and the things they talked about was really actionable. And I like that it's not like the whole day, kind of workshop. It was really hard to find time for sometimes. So recommend them if anyone is interested in checking out some workshop type things.
Oh, thanks, Fee. Yeah, I'm looking for some stuff. My company is sending me on some sort of coaching and membership thing. I got nominated to go. So it's called Butter Up. I don't know what it is. I'll suss it out. And if it's any good, I'll let you know about it.
What do you say was called? Butter Up?
Better Up.
Oh, Better Up. Okay.
Better Up. Yeah.
No.
A slice of toast. There's more butter than butter.
Or maybe it's a way of buttering up to your team members, really just this works. It works.
Consultancy of any kind, I'm going to call it Butter Up.
Yeah.
If you have any references and learning things, don't hesitate to put the link in the chat and maybe on the site as well. For everyone else looking to be a manager.
One book that I found helpful in the past was Driving Technical Change. It's Craig Prog. I think I've got the title right. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I remember it being quite valuable in doing the driving change from below and getting management and managers to be able to help you to get to what you need and what you think is necessary for you to progress in your career, in your projects, whatever. But sometimes it's useful to be able to just see what it takes from their perspective as well.
I guess my thing is I also just look at the people that I like managing me. So I'm always doing a diff between me and them. What are they doing that I want to do just like them? Fiona, you said calm, and that is definitely something that I feel like I look at my manager and I'm like, oh my God, it's literally on fire. It's 3:30 and you're just acting like this is the chillest thing under the sun. And no good thing starts with a shitty attitude. And no good thing starts with panic. And that is absolutely something I think for me, sometimes learning about management is just looking at people that are doing it in a way that I sort of see myself wanting to do it one day, and just figuring out what the gap is and closing that gap.
I think being able to do a git diff between two different people would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can only do it a very micro scale, right? It's down to What did they say? What were they feeling? How was I feeling in it? What was their facial expression? What were their shoulders doing? It is like just the thinnest slice you can possibly cut of an interaction, and then basically diffing that, because that's all you can do.
And
Well, one of
somebody's going to be looking for get blame for their managers, aren't they?
if you want to be a good empathetic manager, you really need to learn body language and talk language. They're very important because if you can read the person's mood, you can then work out which way you need to go as to whether you need to be straight up with them, empathetic, and the timing of all of those things. So, you know, there's body language is the obvious one. However, there's also, you know, talk language is a concept, and they're just things you learn through the years. Some people, you know, I think the old people used to call it my gut, but it's not your gut. You just had you just had the ability to read people and etc. So management, I hate management because it's just the most, what's the word, unappreciated skill. And when you come home, you go like, what the hell did I do today? Whereas if you come home as a developer, you wrote 200 lines of code, you tested five functions and what have you. You come home as a manager and you go, your wife goes, oh, so how's your day, Dal? Oh shit, you know, had this fight. I had to separate these two people, and the boss is da 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 da. So I appreciate all the comments that we're all making in terms of what you want in a manager, but go be a manager and then look down and go like, why the hell do you want this job? Management sucks. I hate management. But you know, at the end of the day, it's just some person that's in a position above you that says yay or nay to you. So they're no different. If you want to be a good manager, body language and talk language, they will give you the skills. They will give you a pointer into the skills that you want to develop to understand people. And I see that many of you focus on empathy, which today is very important because we all get pissed off and upset very easily at the slightest of things. I've had a tendency in my life to be upfront to people and say, look, you know, that code sucks. And then the guy goes into a screaming heap. Well, geez, it shouldn't be that hard. You know, my code over the years has just been atrocious, but I take it as feedback. And that's why I say, I don't like people that hoard things and don't share, because when you have people share, that means that we're all helping one another grow. To the comment one of the ladies there made. So management, what's important for you in being a manager? For me, is not to be one.
Does anyone here like being a manager?
So
I do.
I'm okay with it, but I'm only a year in, so early days.
Yeah, early days for me as well. I love this more than I've loved anything before. But this has also been by far the most challenging thing I've ever embarked on. And so sometimes it's hard to tell if you're enjoying the pain or not. All the good bits of the job. And kind of like what Martin touched on is some days it's hard to see what you've done that day. And that's quite an adjustment to go to.
More qualitative than quantitative.
I actually enjoyed being a team lead, but I didn't enjoy the business management. And often we get both things being conflated in the same role. And they don't necessarily have to be, because the skills that make people good at leading other people aren't necessarily the same things that make them good at business skills. So when we make people managers per se and expect them to both lead other people and have good business skills, I think we're setting people up for failure and not recognizing that those are two separate skill sets and not everybody's going to be good at both.
And almost opposite, really. Yeah.
Yeah, team lead's fantastic because, as I said, being a team lead, you're a part of the group. You're successful. You've done something, or at least you found that you haven't done something. But the point of it is, if you found the bug, you've done something, so you can feel good about you and the people that you're with, because it's forward production, it's forward productivity all the time. When you're a manager, look, at the end of the day, managers, motivation is fine if you have a team that's sad, but if you have a team that's driven and they like being with one another and they like the challenge and those sorts of things, then it's easy, it's cruisy. I've had lots of managers that have thought that themselves to be motivators, but at the end of the day, they were just liars. They just, and I don't like that in people. So I should probably sign off and go and have dinner. But look, management is very difficult. To be a good manager is very difficult. There's a lot of things to be done. Yes, your staff look up to you to have the answer to everything, to have the answer to their problem, to have the answer to the issues they're having with the person next to them. Manager has to resolve the issues of, why am I being paid less than Kevin? Well, how come Matthew is on a salary twice more than me? Rah, rah, rah. Oh, how do you do this? Oh, Bob won't show me how to do that. Go handle that and tell me and come home and go, God, I had a great day. No, it's that's worth every cent. Oh, I'm sure he is. And if he came to work for me, I'd up his salary by $5,000. Just but what is it again? Okay. So what's important for you in a manager? Maybe an indented point to that is what motivates you to be you, in terms of what I've had lots of people. I've had managers where I've been chucked to work under them, and I go, shit, I can't handle this, and so you leave. If you have self-confidence, you leave. But what's important for you in a manager? Okay, what's important for you and you? I mean, that sounds stupid because I don't even know the answer to what I'm asking. But do you want to be a manager? Why would you want to be a manager? Why would you want to be a manager? Because at the end of the day, being a manager only equates to being on a higher wage by a couple of $1,000s. Right? I honestly don't know that there's any glory with it, unless you're working for a company that's got lots of dollars to spend and you've got a big team, and then there is glory and things to be had by being a manager of a large team, because all of the success that the team produces, the only one that'll get the accolades initially will be the manager, because managers will talk to managers. And at the end of the day, you've got the people that work for you. You just need to, keep them fed and motivated and moving, which is trickery. And that's from the point of view of the content of the conversation that's gone on so far, where we want to be appreciated. That's not good. And the majority of managers out there, they're driven by something. They're driven by what's the word? Their targets, and their targets. Then they set themselves as to how they're going to drive you, and that does not always equate into empathy and those sorts of things. Because if you're on $100,000 and the manager says, well, shit, for the $100,000 you should be producing, well, how do you respond to that? Is the manager right when he gives you a talking to and says, listen, for the $100,000 I expect more than 600 lines of code a day, or whatever is the number? So yeah, what's important for you in a manager? I don't know. A person that you can respect. That's I think is the answer. Irrespective of whether that respect is from the fact that you like them because they're mature, that they have knowledge when you come to them, that they have the decency to be honest with you when you ask them a straightforward question. Right? I think that's, as an old bloke, that's what I look forward to in people that I would like to manage me.
Thanks, Malcolm. It's very great and input. All right, I think we've gathered some great inputs, comments, perspective. Maybe let's move on to the next question. What things do you ask to change in the contract? What things do you ask to change in the contract? So I guess what's important for you?
I think maybe the prerequisite question is, do you read your employment contract before you sign it? And then followed by, subsequently by, do you change anything before you sign it?
Or what do you look for? You could say as well. Cheryl?
You look for anything.
Marilyn, go for it.
Yes, I always read my contracts, very much so. Things that I change, if there's non-compete clauses, I definitely read that and alter it as much as I possibly can. Other things to negotiate, obviously pay if I don't like what they've offered. Usually you've negotiated that ahead of time, but definitely at the contract level, and leave, things like that sometimes. I'll ask them to chop things out of contracts if I don't like it.
That's great. I think that's exactly what you should be doing. That's, you know, so I added this question because a blog post came up about this exact thing, and I was curious as to other people. I'm sorry, I'm definitely not talking over you, Brendan. I'll be real quick. I was just curious as to how other people approach this, because I was very much tick, but I'm now less so. Anyway, Brendan, go for it.
Yeah, I always read it at least. Something that I've always taken issue with is the IP section. Is like, you know, I want to do my own work, and I don't want to have, like, as an outside of work, after hours stuff. I want to be able to work on my own stuff without the company claiming ownership of that. And like, even for open source things as well, that, like, you know, they be properly open source and not ownership claimed by the company. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, part of this blog, I'm just going to regurgitate some of it because it was really interesting, was that as some people obviously have more ability to negotiate a contract than others, right? If you are just starting or you have very few opportunities, then you don't have that privilege, which I think a lot more people in software do than in other industries potentially, or depending on your level. And so this guy was trying to advocate for people making sure that you take out the clause and you ask them to change it, even if they say, oh no, we would never do that, which I've had every time, and I still go, please take it out. It doesn't need to be there then, if that's the case. And while it makes things feel uncomfortable and you feel like you're starting off on the wrong foot, it's really the only sort of tool, one of the only tools you really have if the management changes or anything changes, that is your only thing. So anyway, Adam, go for it.
I absolutely agree with you there, Matthew. So I'm coming from the other side. I tend to be the person who's producing the contract rather than the one who's reading and signing them. But one thing I noticed early on is that normally you obviously get lawyers to produce the contracts, and they put in 1,000,001 clauses that are all kind of standard. And the problem that I had with that was that I feel like the contract is your last opportunity to have a cultural check on the business. And there were things in there like, you know, you're not allowed to have personal phone calls and, you know, these sort of random strict things that lawyers put in so that if something comes up and you need a reason to get rid of someone, you've got a whole stack of reasons in the contract. But I felt that actually what I was signaling to people is that we're a pretty horrible company to work for, and you should be, you know, you should be very concerned about what you're getting into.
Sorry, speaking of that, reminds me of like this random clause that I saw in one of my employment contracts, which I didn't dispute, but I just thought it was so interesting that it was on there, which was, that's right, I do sometimes read my employment contracts, thank you so much, I had to publicly update all of my LinkedIn's and my social media accounts to present where I worked correctly, which I thought was interesting. And I was like, I guess my question was, what were they trying to guard for or against? I don't know. It was just, it wasn't particularly spicy. I just thought it's one of those ones where you look at a sign and you're like, what did somebody do to put a sign there? You know what I mean? It's like, employees must wash hands, or do not climb this wall, or don't touch the lava. Go.
That's like Chesterton's fence, right? Like, don't remove a gate you didn't know that you didn't know the reason why it was there in the first place, or something. It's I hear that. Paul?
Sorry to jump in before Paul. I just want to answer Nadia's question of what might have led to such a clause. I've heard of a story at possibly one of our sponsors where someone working quite high up, I'm not going to provide any more details than that, somebody working quite high up left the company on so-so terms and then claimed they actually had a higher job than what they did have on their LinkedIn account, and word got through to their next employer, and turns out they weren't employed there for very long.
So the interesting thing about, just real quick, just to see if this helps with you. So yeah, the thing was like, you have to change, as you get the job, you have to change it within a certain amount of time to the company. And then when you exit, I think there was like immediate termination of yeah, I'm gonna let you finish, Paul. Anyway, so yeah, maybe it was just a case of like somebody was doing something that was poor PR, and like their LinkedIn reflected a certain company that they didn't, and the company no longer maybe want to associate with them. Paul, you go. Hi, Paul.
Hiya. I think that the thing that I was going to say was, I guess, any ambiguities. And so this is, and I got burned by this, not burned, but it was just like a bit of a life lesson, I guess. And this is when I was in Japan, and I had sort of a contract in Japanese, and I was sort of told to do a bunch of things, that as far as I was concerned, didn't cover the scope of like why I was even employed to be at this particular organization. And I showed them the contract, and I'm like, doesn't say anything here about like me doing this stuff here. And then they kind of like zoomed in, it's like zoomed right in there, and they zoomed into like one at the scope of work, and then at the very, very end, and like one small character in there, and enhanced straight into that. And it was the character in Japanese essentially for etc. And I sort of said to them, so you're telling me that by putting the character for etc. under my job duties there, you can essentially encompass anything in the entire world to do, and I'd have to do that. Is that right? And they essentially said pretty much. So at that point, I was just kind of like, well, I mean, what can I do against that? It's kind of indentured servitude at that point. Is
that enforceable? What?
Well, I mean, I wasn't really in a position to sort of, I wasn't going to like hire a lawyer and, go and take them on or anything like that. But it served as a bit of a life lesson to make sure that, if there are areas that require explicitness in writing, because it is essentially your insurance policy. It's a document there that exists for when you have a fight. It's not there when you're in. It's not there. You're not talking about it like during the interview process when when you're all in love with each other and you're dating and everything's great. It's kind of like it's there for when things go wrong, and you have to start pointing at these things on black and white paper, and yeah, when that starts to happen, you want to have things explicit, these things that you can point to and say, hey, it says here XYZ, so please XYZ.
That's the goal. Now you're here, make sure your contract doesn't have etc. written anywhere.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
I think in Australia it's referred to something like or other tasks as directed or something along those lines. You'll find it in most contracts. So yeah, look out for it.
Sometimes you'll get like a within reasonable means though. Sometimes you get like that sort of kind of like like a cute little bit on the end, but yeah.
I think it's reasonable to clean the toilets. Yeah, that seems reasonable. I'm really keen to hear your side of things, because you must encounter this a lot. being in amongst all of this? Do you have like, are there themes?
Probably the IP clause is the one that gets asked to be changed the most, and I can't remember a time when the company said no, they won't change it. It's usually just like lawyer talk, and people are like, oh, it's just standard thing, and they'll just sometimes people like developers will say like, okay, these are my side projects, and that you don't take ownership of, and just kind of have that in email in writing. So that has worked. Other things that gets changed, sometimes it's just like little things like confirming that this is definitely a fully remote role, like they don't just kind of work in the Sydney office, or it's flexible hours, because sometimes a lot of contracts tend to just you work from like 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and people just needed those kind of little confirmation.
Removing ambiguities, as Paul says.
What is it? Sorry?
Removing ambiguities, as Paul says.
Yeah. Sometimes non-compete clauses might get kind of like people pick on it and like, oh, can we reduce that, or what does that mean? Like, because sometimes the wording it sounds like you basically can't work for any tech company in Australia, which is just not reasonable. And I don't know if this is right, and please do not call me on this, but I may have heard that it's not enforceable with like those non-compete clauses as well. That's kind of what I've heard. Or it's really hard to enforce it or something. I don't know if this is true or not, but yeah, so far haven't come across anyone who had trouble with it. Yeah, those are probably the things that I've seen the most.
Depends a lot on the jurisdiction as to what the particular labour laws are, but for places with stronger labour laws, at least I'm going to include Australia in that we have reasonably strong labour laws here, that non-compete clauses to a degree are generally found non-enforceable. There are some circumstances, particularly the higher that you go in an industry, there may be reasons, but then people are generally compensated with multiple six figures in order to not compete. So for the standard, people like us, well, it's generally not enforceable.
Yeah, I imagine it's also industry based. Like if you're in a highly proprietary, is that the word? Or like where like IP matters like a lot, then I imagine the non-compete clauses are a little bit different than what it is for us.
Another thing that sometimes people ask to change is job title, or their title. Some titles matter more, to some people. So sometimes they just want to change the wording of it.
Titles can also be important from an equity perspective. So that's definitely something I've seen lots of people talk about. And if somebody's not willing to budge on a title, I would definitely reconsider whether I'd actually wanted to work there.
That's very interesting, Mark, because I feel like I have the opposite view. Like I don't really care for titles, so I'm always really fascinated by the flip side perspective.
I'm sort of mentioning it more from a perspective that I've heard a lot of it coming from BIPOC people, particularly in the United States, where it may be culturally different in some respects. But for many people that have been, particularly in tech, marginalized people in tech that have been kept out of the industry or haven't been able to get into the industry in easy ways, access to titles actually makes a big difference for a lot of people over there. And so this isn't something that I'm directly experiencing myself, but it definitely is a difference.
Cheryl agrees it's more important in USA than in Australia. Thanks for your input, Matt. Anyone else would change anything else in the contract?
Maybe which company it was with. Okay.
That's awesome.
When you read it, you'll know it.
All right. Well, let's maybe move on to the next question. What is the next thing you want with your career, and what do you think you have to do to get there? Looks like how complex it is. Yeah. Yeah. So, what is the next thing you want to do with your career, and what do you think you have to do to get there? Anyone else feels an urge to start to kick off the discussion? Let's think about this for a second. Maybe I'll start. Just because no one is jumping in the fire. What is the next thing? So I think the next thing I want to do in my career, that might not be the next step, but maybe the step after, is I definitely would like to move more into maybe, or at least give it a try. Maybe I would like to move more into like managerial position or something like that, because, or like team leads, I guess, because I actually feel like I'm really good with people, and like currently, I mean, definitely my people skills are way better than my technical skills. But I feel like it's also maybe my contribution to the planet. So I would like to, yeah, maybe give a shot to, like, there's so many names for it in this industry, but things that relates to management.
Don't give up on your technical skills, though.
And what do you think you have to do to get there? I think it's funny because I think in order to get there first, I need to get really good at the technical side, because then I'm not fluff. Like I want to be able to back my managerial things by really good technical knowledge. So yeah, my current step is get really good with my technical area. Anyone else wants to go?
Take it away, Pat.
Pat.
I mean, unless Paul wants to interrupt, because that would be totally fair. For those who don't know me so well, I've been a contractor for the bulk of the last 15 years. And so I guess what I'm thinking about doing next is maybe becoming an employee again. Because, I mean, what experiences I have been extremely technical, which is fantastic, but I haven't had opportunities to be a manager, to be a mentor even so much. And even to kind of have that sense of shared ownership as well. So I'd probably be more interested in say a product company than a services agency or so forth. Yeah, that's kind of next on my list, although bedding down some technical things within that would also be really nice. I don't want to give up code. That's finding that balance, I feel, is tricky. Yeah, the next steps will be, I guess, to finally finish this contract I've been working on for the past 2.5 years that was supposed to take 6 months. Well, I thought was going to take 6 months, but that's on me. I made that estimate. So hopefully in another couple of months it'll be done. But and then I'll probably start having conversations with a lot of people.
It has taken 6 months, Pat. It just feels like 2.5 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat.
So you'll be looking for work at the end of 2019.
Adam,
Yeah, so I've been in small to medium business since like 2009, maybe, at a guess. And that's been phenomenal because I've been able to, I've worked on a range of different projects. I've been able to use a whole range of technologies, and you can move really fast. Like when you want to change something, you can be extraordinarily agile. But I've recently felt that I've kind of hit a bit of a, I guess, a bit of a limit. Like the challenges only get so complex until at that scale. So so I am actually maybe one step ahead of Pat. I'm already on the hunt for employment. But basically, though, for me, it's in the hope of I want to see more complex environments. I want to work on more challenging things, you know. And while I would absolutely speak to the value of working in smaller environments. Yeah, once you, I've basically gotten bored. So,
nice. Do you know what you have to? What do you think you have to get there?
So I'm going to take a bit of an odd route through. So firstly, I will start by just dropping back into an individual contributor role, and that will give me an opportunity to understand how all of the different roles work in a larger organization. Yeah, at the moment, I do everything. I contribute. I do delivery management. I do project management, people management, and what will be the most interesting thing is understanding where are the lines in when you have to scale up, and once those roles are separated into separate parts, what's the bit that I even enjoy? Like when I'm doing everything, I can't tell you what specific part gets me joy because I'm just doing the whole lot. It'd be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to find out, like, what is the subsection of that I actually like.
That sounds like a really fun journey.
What is this individual contributor term? Everyone's an individual and everyone's a contributor.
Big code.
Speaking
I
of
don't know, I have lots of personalities inside me, and sometimes they all contribute simultaneously.
Sometimes they don't contribute at all.
Yeah, other times they do. Then yeah, exactly. They're just arguing. It's really painful.
Yeah. Paul, take it away.
So I don't have specifics of what I want to do with the career next, but I think that what I do know is that I think I have to be terrified of what comes next. And I think that one of the reasons for that is that it starts off being terrifying until it doesn't, until you kind of get used to it. And that happened to me once when I went for a pre-sales position. And so I was a pre-sales consultant for a couple of years, and that was after being a developer for a while. And that sort of took me into the land of sales. And I ended up doing like demos and going in with salespeople and, pitching product and, selling to value in front of like CEOs and CTOs. And, everyone's got a different audience and they all want different things and all that other kind of stuff. And I was barely touching the code at all. I had to like do that at night. But after doing that for like a few years, then I kind of started missing building stuff, and then I went, back into development, and I was sort of happy. But a lot of those skills were really great to bring back to that, bring back to development land. And so I guess that like now, if someone sort of said to me, "Hey, congratulations, you are now like project manager," and I'd be like, "Okay, that's not that scary. I could probably do that." It's like, right, product manager, no, probably you'd be okay. You're now VP of engineering. Bit scary now. It's like, hey, you're CTO now. It's like, oh, okay, now what? So it's kind of like various levels of like terror that kind of escalate with, I guess, like my idea of what those titles all mean. So I guess that it would have to sort of be that area where I'm at my maximum level of uncomfortability.
So you're saying you're ready
Otherwise,
to be
just be treading
CTO?
water. Sorry.
You're saying you're ready to be CTO?
No, but basically, if that happened, then you end up getting kicked upstairs to what's the phrasing? It's like your highest level of incompetence or something. Like what's the rule? I can't remember what the law is.
Peter
Something,
principle.
someone's law.
Yeah.
Peter
The
principle.
Peter principle.
There it is. Yeah.
What was that? Can you write it in chat? Peter principle. Awesome. That's a great way to go about. Well, I love it. Seals, you just rejoined us. Maybe would you like to talk about what do you think is the next thing you want to do with your career, and what do you think you have to do to get there? You can say no. Just
No, I'm happy to say yes. I actually have been thinking about this a lot lately, and I have a list somewhere. I don't think I'll find it fast enough, but I want to be a senior data engineer. And I've got a whole list of like what I've been looking at senior data engineer job ads, and I've been making lists of the things I need to learn to be a senior data engineer. I don't know where the list is. I have got the list though.
it's very well structured. Well,
I like to be organized. I don't know. I did a 5-year plan recently, which involved building a permaculture food forest and becoming a senior data engineer. So those are my goals at the moment.
that's sick.
At the same time,
At the same time, Seals?
Sorry?
Nice.
is it a senior data engineer and permaculture at the same time?
Yeah. Oh, I found my list. It's entitled "Become a Senior Data Engineer."
Well titled. That's good. That's good.
Thank you. Create and maintain data pipelines, Kafka, data flow, create and maintain APIs, learn more about data structures such as data lakes, data snowflakes, data mesh, data warehouse, and learn more Python, Scala, and Elixir. There's ML in brackets at the bottom because I'm not sure how to go about that one yet.
Nice. That's some goal setting, right?
Is that all?
Well, for the moment, this is the first year of the 5-year plan towards becoming a senior engineer, which will happen at the end of the 3rd year, in case anyone was asking that question.
Okay. One at the end of next year.
Sorry?
Bring it forward. The end of the next.
I like to set realistic goals.
Okay.
Thanks, Nadia. Who knew that I would be prepared for this, Roro?
Hey, as you said, you like to be organized. That could be seen as being prepared. Thanks, Seals.
Wouldn't want to give people the impression of being prepared, though.
You don't want people to think you got your shit together now, do you?
I don't know. I think I've got my shit together as much as anyone does.
Yeah, I like how you're sounding so organized. I love it. I think
Nice.
for me, is like I'm like Fia, I'm only just new to my role, so I'm chill. I'm good to hang out Fia for another 5 years before I feel like I've actually had one go at it. Because I think as you become more senior in your career, you have to kind of spend longer at each step than you have in the past. So I'm at least 5 years from like any kind of movement. But I reckon one thing that I like a lot is like strategic thinking. I'm good at like the execution stuff. Like give me something and I'll find a way to execute on it. And that will have some kind of strategic thinking behind the execution, but I'm not good at coming up with a plan. Like, so for example, my manager, he is so amazing because he's like, why don't we do this, and there's like 16 solutions to this one problem that I barely could even articulate. And he's like articulated it, found out what the actual problem space is, understood where the opportunities are, and like is just like handing out ideas to get feedback on. And I'm like, I don't know, this was a problem. Great, whatever you want. I'll execute on it, but you just tell me what you want to execute on. So I think if I, in the next 5 or 10 years, maybe I'll just become a bit more of a strategic thinker.
Cool.
That's the next level of opening doors, right? If I want to be the kind of manager who's capable of opening doors, then I have to find the doors and mold the doors and then open the doors.
And find those doors, few doors back,
Mm.
or a few doors ahead.
Open the doors to let the oxygen in for the fire. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? We've all been there.
Oh man, what a callback.
Okay. Anyone else? Matthew, maybe?
Yeah, mine isn't very inspirational at all. I haven't really stayed anywhere long enough to figure out what that even is yet, either because I've just done a lot of hopping based on jobs disappearing or not being what they first I expected, and so I haven't had the opportunity to figure out what that is because I don't know, because I haven't been around a company long enough to know what I want to do yet. So yeah.
Maybe that's your next thing. You want to do less hopping.
Well, that's exactly it. That's the thing, is to not do as much moving because it's not that exciting. Well, sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. So that's my career is to not quit my job so soon. This is just really, wow, God, I've really set the bar real high. There you go. There it is. There it is.
Yeah. It's the whole thing.
It's
Glad I'm not the only one, Matthew.
well, no, I'm in the same boat. I was like, listen, I'm gonna get this job. I'm gonna settle down. My resume is looking a little spicy. I'm happy to make it. Got acquired. Damn it! I have to change my resume again. I'm starting to look like a real flight risk on paper.
Oh boy.
Just instead of putting the higher position on your resume, just put a longer time period.
Yeah, just pad it out, just overlap them all so that nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's just a blur.
Yeah, this time last year, I didn't have this role, this job, or the company. And so since then, I've moved 2 companies, 2 roles to 2 jobs. So it's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, so is
Yeah,
the
but that's kind of
do I lie effectively, I guess, and like prolong, like which way do I? It's great that this is recorded. Which way do I manipulate the LinkedIn?
Don't have LinkedIn. Use your resume and drop off dates off anything up past 10 years. You can still have roles, but you just don't have the dates.
Yeah, no.
Nobody cares how long you were at such and such a job 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, this is all in the last year, year or 2.
the drop off is definitely.
That's a little part of the fudge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not bad. Like, I think if I had a conversation with somebody, they would like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, you got promoted, and then you got acquired. Like on principle, it's fine, but on paper, it just looks sketchy.
Your job butterfly. That's one. Anyone else? I would say everyone. Oh, Brandon.
For my career, I'd like to do more of what I'm doing, development. But I have been struggling a bit for a while with keeping up with reviewing code. Like I do a lot of review, and it was taking like half my working hours were like reviewing. I was like, maybe that's too much. Yeah, I need to like let go a bit of trying to. I've been to this point because we've like I've been at GreenSync building the applications like from the ground up, these ones that like I like to keep across all the changes that are happening to them, but you know that there's a lot of people working on them all now, and it's hard to keep across everything that's going on. So yeah, I like to be able to know everything about how something works, and I'm finding it difficult to let go of that.
Nothing wrong with wanting to know how everything works. I'm the same. It actually causes some problems at times because it takes longer to figure out exactly how all the magic behind the scenes works. But at the end of the day, you have a better understanding of how things all fit together, and that can be useful when you're working at least with a team of other people, and you can be the person that people come to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe less micro review the code and more macro.
Sorry, Kevin, say again.
I was saying to Brandon, maybe less of micro reviewing the code and just more macro reviewing.
Yeah, more red numbers than green numbers. Great, perfect, brilliant. Damn. Next, ding.
Oh, you won't get any understanding with that.
Yeah, but there's less code to read now, so you know eventually it will make sense. Anyway,
I think we've almost exhausted this point, but I'll just chime in with it. Without details. My career is kind of stalled, but my next steps are get my health sorted, get to Melbourne, then I can restart my career. So
I think those are great next steps. I think that's next steps.
those are good steps, mate.
All right.
On that note, thanks, Mark.
what?
I am pooped. I'm out. Have a lovely night, everybody.
What about my closing slide?
You've just got a secret side project you don't want to tell anyone about.
Look, it's because the IP, you know, I'm not allowed to talk about it. It's the contract clause I have with myself. I signed it and I wrote it. All right, good to see you all. Have a wonderful night.
Have a wonderful night. No, yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for your participation. All right, awesome. Well, seeing that the time is the time, 8 p.m., we'll keep it reasonable, and don't worry about a side project. Oh, except if you feel really enthralled to speak about it. But it was kind of our fallback question, to be honest. And
Can I plug something that I've done that is side, but also Ruby on Rails related?
I think you can definitely do that. And I'm sorry, but if you could excuse me whilst you do that, and Matthew will be the host.
Or
It's
worth a talk. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that to you, Paul. You live your life doing that to everybody else. Carry on.
So I've actually just put a link in the chat to a YouTube video of something that I did recently. And so I've been, for the last few years, learning stenography. So if you've ever learned or wondered about the keyboards that court reporters use while taking testimony during legal proceedings, they use like a sort of a fancy keyboard that uses, sort of like I guess a special language to be able to type fast. And so there's been like a massive movement to take all of like the previously sort of custom hardware and software and make it all open. And there's this thing called the open steno movement to sort of like try and make stenography itself more accessible to everyone. And so I got into that and I sort of embraced it full on. Like I love it. It's great fun to do. I got like a couple of like sort of I took my original sort of split keyboard, my ErgoDocs, and I made it run steno. And then I bought like a specific steno keyboard. And then I was kind of like, all right, I started to do lots of drills and, tried to type up, legal proceedings and all that other kinds of stuff. And it's like really great fun. I'm still not very fast. I haven't gone past my QWERTY speeds yet. But in the end, what I wanted to do was like, all right, can I take this keyboard and like maybe just bring it into like my everyday work rather than it kind of like sit on the side and wait for my practice sessions. And so I was like, all right, how do I do this? Like what needs to happen? And so I went and basically took DHH's Rails 7 demo and was like, all right, how can I do this with like a steno keyboard and what do I need to do? And so I went and figured out like a bunch of stuff on like how to control my computer with this keyboard. you know, what kind of like strokes or chords that you need to sort of like play or on there to be able to, you know, make it do what you need to do. And then, you know, what sort of like special code related things I can do to make writing code feel, you know, as natural as you would if you're just sort of like writing plain text. And so, so yeah, I ended up doing like a combination of, I guess, sort of like Vimy stuff plus Alti snips, which is like sort of like snippets and stuff. So similar to what you'd find in, I guess, Visual Studio. And then lots of AppleScript stuff. I know way more AppleScript than I ever wanted to in order to figure out how to control my computer using Steno keyboard. So like this particular demo that I did, which ended up being like a 2-hour marathon. So yeah, if you ever feel like watching it, like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 times speed, it's like totally okay. It's yeah, it's kind of like the culmination of what I was able to sort of like do with, you know, code and making something from scratch with just using you know, this particular keyboard and this particular sort of stenographic theory, this open stenographic theory. So so yeah, that's a thing that I did recently.
That sounds awesome.
Just a little thing, little thing you did. Jesus,
Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
just a little thing.
Yeah, little thing on the side. That's amazing. Cool.
That's amazing. You can actually do programming.
Welcome
with
to
it.
Ruby on Rails, the Steno demo.
Sorry.
We're going to follow the same journey that David Meyer Hansen took us on. in
Paul's
his
like,
Rails
my
version
voice,
7
my own
demo."
voice. Ah, that's so good. Because I remember you talking about this a while ago, and I saw you with your, you know, you bought the keycaps and stuff, and I've seen you at Elixir Camp doing it. That's so cool.
Yeah, it took a while for me to get to the point where I was, okay, I can now bring this into code land, because it really did just like sort of sit by itself in its own little silo that I sort of bring the keyboard over, like do practice, you know, for a while, but then just kind of like put it away. And then I sort of had to think, okay, in order for me to be able to work every day with this thing, like what needs to happen, you know, without losing too much productivity. And so I'm getting there. It's tough. It's a long road, but yeah, it's good fun.
Well,
I'll go on, Pat. You can spruik it again.
Yeah, why not?
Come on, Pat. Do it.
Spruik.
I wasn't fishing. Okay, sure. Oh, you use it? Awesome.
Which
so
ones are going to be?
So Calm Calendar is what I was going to mention. Essentially, I worked at a couple of places doing contract work and had an account in their Google Calendar system, and colleagues would just go, "Oh, I see you're free then, I've booked in a meeting," which was mostly fine unless I had personal plans like lunch with friends or a doctor's appointment. And so I wanted something that would synchronize my personal calendars into my work calendar without sharing the finer details. And so I built this. I started building it a few years ago using a third party that did all the calendar stuff for me, did that, like interacting with the different calendar types. And then I had a friend point out that, well, using a third party means that's a third party that's got access to all your customers' data, and that's not ideal. I'm like, yes, that's a good point. And then I put it aside because I wasn't doing contracting work with the types of companies where I needed it personally anymore. But then I picked it up again last year and rewrote it from scratch and figured out how to deal with all the different calendar formats. So CalDAV, Google Calendar, and Microsoft. So now I know far too much about calendars and all their different challenges. But I'm pretty happy with the end result. So it's there if people use it or want to give it a shot and then have questions or feedback, do hit me up. But technically it's all, so it's Rails 7. I upgraded it to Rails 7. It's running on Ruby 3.1. I'm using Tailwind UI, which is something I learned about at a RORO talk. It's also using Vue components, which is something I learned about in a RORO talk. So yeah, I'm really happy with the end result, but constantly tinkering with it and fixing bugs and yeah.
How's the uptake looking?
Slow and steady. Look, I'm not expecting it to become my day job. If it gets to that point, amazing. If I can get it even to the point where it just pays my rent, that would be really nice. But it's still it's a long way from there at this point. Yeah, it's about 1/10 of the way there. So, you know,
Cool.
Hey,
very much slow and steady.
So maybe if you feel like doing a talk about it one day, we're always open.
Yeah, I guess I need to figure out the right angle. I don't want to just say, hey, I built this thing. Aren't I great? You should all use it. Done. It'd be
How
nice
about
to,
some of the crazy stuff about calendars you mentioned?
yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel like I'm going to be telling people, hey, here are things you will never need to know. Be thankful. But yeah, anyway, I'll have a think.
But what about Support Act? Isn't that your side project too?
That's a even smaller side project. Yes, that doesn't even pay for itself. That's just something to encourage people to buy albums to actually support the artists that they stream, because streaming royalties are minuscule.
That's awesome.
Is there also a story behind around like the deployment strategy? Sorry, not deployment. I mean hosting strategy, Pat. Because I know that you sort of went for, I guess, hosting based on renewable energy, and I would wager that that is probably a niche thing at this point. In order to try and like find and negotiate that, and I would wager there's probably a bunch of pain points and a hero's journey around that whole process. That could probably be a talk.
Yeah, I mean the short answer off the top of my head is it's more comes down to pragmatism, and also it's a very small side project that, you know, it pays for itself in hosting, but it's still I went for using render.com instead of Heroku. Very similar, but Render's built off Google, and particularly Google in Oregon, and the Oregon Google data center is, if not mostly, possibly all renewable powered. But it's still Google, which is a bad big tech company. It's an improvement on Amazon, but that's, yeah. It could have gone a far more I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, ethical perhaps approach, and kind of built on top of a cloud option in Zurich, which was entirely renewable powered and not any of the big tech companies. But then I would lose the platform as a service kind of stuff. And I don't know if I want that headache or the costs.
Maybe that's your next side,
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are very excited when AWS released their carbon emissions calculator, and I just kind of saw that, like, do you remember when the plastic company released the ads with the Italian guy dressed up as a Native American who was upset about like things like rubbish getting thrown out? Like, it's like AWS is saying, like, rather than us cleaning up our act, what we're going to do is put it on you to minimize your emissions.
Just when you think American companies can't get any worse.
Anyone else?
Always find new ways to surprise you.
Yeah, you never know how bad it can get.
This is not a tech.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
There's so much merging of concentrating of wealth in like companies in Australia as well. That like we're going to end up in the same situation as the US. Like I think it was Wes Farmers I looked into recently, that like they started off as a co-op. That is a long way from where they are now.
I have written a talk on the fall of the American empire and what comes next and its corporations, but I can't give it publicly. So
What?
Oh, you just announced it. You can't. Oh man, now I want to hear it even more.
I say some spicy things.
What if we don't record it? You know.
We want to hear spicy things.
Damn right we do.
Maybe at a RORO, at a Rails camp
Rails camp. Oh,
or something. I don't know.
that would get me
around.
there. That would get me there, Seals. I would put up with the sleeping situation in order to hear the spicy takes.
I'll see. Maybe I could take some of them out. I say something dreadful. I don't know. I can't say it in public.
Put
Not when
extra
it's being
in.
recorded. But this is my map of my permaculture food forest, which you probably can't see very well because the colors aren't distinct. But this is my side project at the moment.
Wow. Awesome.
What does that
I'm
mean?
having lots of fun.
Yes, tell us what a food forest is, Seals.
I think it's a permaculture idea, but you have like levels of food growing. So you've got tree levels and shrub levels and ground level and permanent plants and annual plants, and it all kind of grows in together and feeds off each other. And
That's
yeah.
awesome. And then you feed off them. Okay.
Yes.
Permaculture is pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
And sorry, where is this forest?
Just out there. I'm in Avoca, the other side of Ballarat.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Did
She's
you
in a forest.
Seals relocating? Did you, Adam?
It was quiet.
I was like, I have no idea where Seals is. And I was like, this doesn't sound like inner city Melbourne.
It's very far from
On the
that.
top of a building.
It was a very mad decision, but that's okay.
When are you expecting to reap the first fruit of that forest?
Next year.
Okay. Exciting.
Yeah. It also has a 5-year plan. So
You mentioned it was in your 5-year plan.
Wait, the forest has its own 5-year plan, so it's sentient and it knows
Yeah.
what it's doing.
The chickens wrote it, I bet.
That
I
is
bet
correct.
the chickens wrote it. They were like, yeah, right.
no, I can't have chickens.
Has it got career goals as well?
I'll have to check.
You gotta go
Whenever I
ask
hear
it, right? You gotta go
5-year
ask it. Yeah.
It's
Whenever I
one
hear
of them.
5-year plan, I think managed economy stuff. So I'm like, okay, we're going to have a revolution of some sort first.
Donut economics. Kindness economics.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Nice. Anybody would like to talk about a side project? Anybody else?
I don't remember if I mentioned it
need
before,
one.
but I, in connection to carbon dioxide mentioning earlier, I have an Arduino and a air quality sensor, which, as you can see, I've made a lot of progress on. So, yeah, but that'll be cool. Have a little sensor that tells me or tracks throughout the day how much carbon dioxide there is, and maybe I can correlate that to like feeling a particular way.
I like that. Why don't you do a brain tracking thing instead? Nice. Well, when you do it and you have it done and you think there's a talk about it, we hear.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Just make sure you use Ruby. Nice one.
Oh, mruby that compiles. Wonder if there's an Arduino mruby.
That's a good way to get projects done. Is like, oh, let's just figure out how we can shave this yak and get mruby in here. Alrighty.
Okay. Then let's move on. Can you guys still see my screen? Okay. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone for participating in this roundtable discussion. I think there was some valuable input, perspective, comments. We always values everyone input. So thank you for participating. We really appreciate that.